Hello. I'm on break today. I'm on break right now. That's why I decided to go live, but let's wait for other people. We are discussing I actually have a list of topics with regards of photography, and one of the topics that I would like to discuss with you guys are is what are the three major for the thumbnail. Three major struggles of photographers. The three major struggles of photographer. We start with physical, financial, and mental. So guys, let me know um, if you're online. We are getting ready for dinner. We're having our dinner ready actually, and I'm in a break. Okay. So we're live. We're live. All right. Fine. Okay. So basically, what will happen? Oh, BJ, good evening, man. Okay. So tonight we are going to discuss three different struggles of photographers. Please let me know if you have your own struggles also. My name is Chris Calumberan and I am the chief photographer and founder of Chris Calumberan FZE, and I am a photographer for almost 15 years now. I've been in the industry for the 15 years. Um, I've been shooting a lot of commercial photography. Please visit my website. It's chriscalumberan.com and follow me on Instagram, instagram.com/chriscalumberan. And right now, hello. Right now, we are going to discuss with you. I am going to discuss with you the three struggles of being a photographer. They are physical, financial, and mental. So let's start with the first one, physical struggle. Well, I'm not talking about physical as in the physical body that we have, our weight or our height, not that kind of physical. The physical struggle that I'm talking about is equipment. Yes, equipment. Hello, Mr. Jaime Rivera. Thank you for liking. So, first and foremost, one of the first struggle that I think yes, you are. Okay, the first struggle that I think that a photographer faces is equipment. Whenever there is this discussion about equipment, people always mention that the best camera that you have, the best camera there is what you have. It may be your mobile phone, it may be your cheap camera, it can be whatever camera that you have, as long as you have a camera. It's a yes and no, of course. Obviously, if you're an amateur photographer or you're starting out, you may need to have your whatever camera that you can afford, of course. Um, but what we need, being an amateur, being a startup, being a start photographer, we need to think of compositions, especially in street photography. I'm not saying it's for amateur, but street photographers, um, me as if I'm going to do street photography, I will not worry about the manual setting. I will just go for the automatic settings because I would rather have my camera think for the moment, because even the cheapest camera, they do have their own database and would know what shot or what setting you would need in a certain period of day, in a certain period of situation, because it can recognize a scene from its database, believe it or not. Our cameras are smart enough to do that for us. So what we need to do is to make our images um, interesting by the use of composition and storytelling. So, yes, if you're worried about not having a proper camera or a beautiful, a better camera than what you have, don't worry, because the best camera that you have is what you have right now. The best camera that you can have at the moment is what you're holding. That is when you are starting up. When you progress, going for what you call this, making money or being professional or being a semi-pro, you should not rush yourself to get the best camera ever. I would suggest, if you save up, uh, try to have a try to have a deadline in which that you would be able to save. Like, for example, for 6 months you will save this lot of money, and what the number is. Like, for example, if you're targeting for a 5D Mark IV, or you're targeting for a lower version of a camera, try to find out how much that is with the kit lens or whatever lens you may have. Start with the kit lens; it's much more better. Even the 24-105 would, is good. Try to assess how much that camera is, and put that number in mind. Write it on paper. Then try to put yourself in a situation that you will have, that this is a project of yours, to get that dream camera that you are aiming for. You need to find a target, not just the target of the object, but the target of the time and the target of the finance that you require. So, what you will do now is to put a deadline in which you would like to have that camera. For example, I would like to have that camera 6 months from now. So 6 months from now, you will have six paydays, or you need to produce this amount in the next 6 months. So give yourself a deadline. Some of us are, really risky just to put it on the credit card, put it in the credit card. I mean, nothing wrong with that, but the best way is to save up for it. Even save up for the half amount of cash and pay the rest on credit. You can do that as well, so you can, like, at least push a little bit more on the model that you are aiming for. But again, not all expensive things are the best for you. Is the best for you. Remember this: not all expensive things is the best for you. I would suggest, because me myself, I if it's not a life in debt situation, I would never put a purchase on the credit card. I will not make any purchase, whatever it may be, if it's not a life and death situation. I disciplined myself that I would only use the credit card if it's very, very important and very, very urgent. If it's urgent and not important, then it's my fault that I wasn't able to save up for it. But if it's important and not urgent, I will try to push the days or delay it until I reach that certain amount that I will be able to pay. I hope I'm making sense. That's number one. The struggle of a photographer physically is the equipment. But the aha moment on that was when I was using a 50D on a project. It was a very serious project. Well, not very serious. It's like an event, and I'm covering the event. My the primer the first photographer lent me his 5D Mark II, and I was using lent me his 5D. It was 5D that time. It wasn't a 5D Mark 1. It's a 5D Mark 1. He basically lent it to me with a 2470 Series 1. And after using the 50D for quite some time, maybe at least 3 years, after using the 5D Mark II, the 5D Mark I full frame camera, I thought to myself what I was thinking. What am I thinking? I'm in this professional realm. I'm shooting to earn, but I'm doing it wrong because I remember I'm shooting with a 5D Mark I with the Sigma 2470. The Sigma 2470 I dropped twice. I actually purchased twice the Sigma 2470 because that is the only lens that I could afford those times. I dropped the first one and I sold the second one. But anyway, nonetheless, I was happy with that lens because it made me through until I get to buy my proper camera. Make the most out of your equipment. Because this is a struggle of a photographer. The more that you try to save up your money, the more higher you can get back with a better equipment, or you can distribute your wealth, or you can distribute your savings to more practical things or more important matters, in the more important matters. Because if you try to force yourself to get an equipment that you won't be able to afford in the long run, you might be struggling because of the return of investments. Because there are some bits and pieces of money that you may need to pay off things that would later on, save your behind. You know what I mean? So try to maximize the amount, or maximize the equipment that you may have until its last breath. But if the situation gets into fold that you really may need a specific camera, don't rush yourself. Hey Ben, don't rush yourself to purchase it immediately. Try to rent it. If it's only for a day or two, the assignment, just rent it out. But again, the rental companies also gives you a good it's a good how do you call this, there is advantages using rental companies, because even before you purchase a camera that you have read and studied and reviewed on the internet, you may still need to find ways how you would be able, or to use it first, to try it before purchasing it. So go to the rental company. Lighthouse is good. Lighthouse in Alcuz, hot and cold in Alcuz. They are one of the most uh, leading rental companies here in UAE. And try to, play with it. Or if you have a friend that you can lend the camera from, but I would suggest not renting the equipment, or renting the equipment advance before the shoot that you may have, because it needs time for you to get used to it, the camera. You need some time to get used to the functionalities before you use it during an assignment, a very important assignment. You know what I mean? Maybe if the assignment is on a weekend, or maybe if an assignment is on a Sunday, because the first day in the UAE is Sunday or a Monday, try to hire it on a Thursday night so that you will have Friday and Saturday for free, and then return it on the Sunday evening if the job is on Sunday. Something like that. Try to sleep with your camera, sleep with that equipment that you have rented, that you are planning to buy in the future, so that you will get used to the functionalities. Because some mistakes are done during the project that you won't be able to, because our brain or our physicality the camera needs to be a part of our limbs. The camera needs to be a part of our body. It has to be, it can be like the third arm, shall I say. You need to sync with it. You need to know how the functionalities are, especially the autofocus function, the point function, the exposures. You need to know this not by heart, but at least get a grip on that new equipment that you're going to use during an assignment, especially because you don't want to fail and end up using your old camera for that assignment anyways, if your old camera is not good enough for that assignment. So that is struggle number one, physicality. Two parts, amateur wise and professional wise. So let's go to number two. What are the struggles of being a photographer? Number two is capital. Having finances, capital. We touched on that on the first one, but capital. I'm talking about having your startup. If you want to start up being a photographer and you're struggling to start because you don't have finances. You're struggling to start because you don't have capital. And you're trying to like search for capital and look for different investors, which I did through all these years of being studying business. I went to friends of mine and or even strangers, and I created at least in my at least five different business proposals that are rejected. One was almost went in the financing, but it was a weird that was a very weird, awkward experience, that part, because I remember during the early 2000, Lighthouse and I were supposed to open together. I was supposed to have my own commercial warehouse in Alcuz next to the courtyard. I found the proper place to put my own commercial studio. It costs like just the permit alone, the MEP, to get a construction license. Permit. It's not a license. It's just a permit. 50,000 dirhams to start constructing on the property. Well, it is already a box, and you just need to basically put like concrete flooring. I had this mezzanine floor that makes it more expensive because you have a second floor. You need to build the railings. You need to build a what you call this, a proper staircase, and just to have the permit to construct, it's 50,000 dirhams. I said, what? So, guys, I advise you, even if you may have capital to start, or even if you do, I mean, having a capital to start, well and good, you are lucky, you are blessed. But even if you don't have a capital to start, but you have your basic equipment with you, start doing it. Capital or finance should not hinder you to do your photography or to do service in the community. The only problem is price wars. The only problem is that all of us struggle is price wars. So, the second struggle of being a photographer is finances. And in accordance to that, finances is the price wars. Meaning to say, if you have another photographer who is charging 250 per hour, someone will charge 150 per hour. if he heard someone is charging, if someone hears that someone is charging 150 per hour, someone, definitely someone will charge 50 dirhams per hour. Guys, we are, you know, price wars will not lead to anywhere. It will only crush the economy, not economy, but the industry of us being photographers. I mean, well, as a free market, me as a client, obviously I will look for a reasonable and more economical photographer that will work on a project that I have. But not, I will, if I am smart enough, I will also not try to um, compromise the quality that this other photographer is giving. I heard this photographer, an entrepreneur, Mr. Arvin or Olivia. Let me get his name properly. I mean, I started listening to this guy, and I got inspired by his vlog. To be honest, Arvin, yeah, Arvin Orubia, Mr. Arvin Lim Orubia on Facebook, and Arvin Orubia in on the YouTube. What he basically mentioned was, um, try to think of ways not to make your service cheaper, but think of ways that you will make your service more expensive, more valuable. Do not try to make or think of ways how you will make your service cheaper, but think of ways to make your service more valuable, so that um, you will earn more income, and you will put a better value on your service and as you as a brand. I hope I'm making sense. I mean, he is just a core, Mr. Arvin or Olivia. He is such a hardcore entrepreneur. I think we just started together at the same time, because the number of years that he has an experience being an entrepreneur, I also have the same struggles and the same what do you call this, challenges when I was starting during my formative years, and I relate to him, and I would really suggest you guys to listen to him because it was so inspiring. And that's why I started again this new vlog, Live to Shoot, Shoot to Live, Photog's Life, for you guys, so I can share my thoughts and share my experiences with you guys. So that is number two. Struggling with capital, struggling with finances. If I recap it, basically try to think of ways how you make your service more valuable and more expensive rather than having it more cheaper. Because in the end of the day, if you're getting peanuts for your work, you won't be happy. In connection to that, if you're not happy, you will not be able to do the best that you can on that project, which makes your project mediocre, which makes your project lesser the quality that than you working happier, you working in your own price. You will exert more effort into doing so, in submitting it on time, in advance on time, making your client happy, if you are happy working with that amount that you have. You know what I mean? And try to be frugal somehow, that you don't need a bigger capital to start on your professional photography gig. Try to be more um, less of what do you call this, less cost. Try to monitor your cost and try to think of how you can account on that cash flow that you may have. Only work with the resources that you may have. So that is the number two struggle of being a photographer. So let's go to number three, the third struggle of being a photographer. Number three is mental. The mental problem of being a photographer. Um, Mental health is very important. Uh, because I am a mental a mental I am mental. I am a social advocate. I had this advocacy for um, Alzheimer's awareness, which connects to mental health issues. And one of the issues that I am, very concerned of is depression. Depression that, killed my friend's son. I mean, there's a lot of suicides that happen because of depression. Um, as an artist, as a photographer, uh, there is a thin line because since we involve our feelings on creation and involve our feelings in our work in such a way that we tend to be more sensitive because our work is rather in the emotional sense, in more of the shall I say, it triggers emotions. If your work doesn't give me and my classical music, if your work doesn't give enough, or if you're comparing your work with others to others, and it is lesser the impact, your work is lesser the impact with the other photographers, and instead of inspiring you, it frustrates you because you feel envious of that other photographer. I have been into this case many, many, many times, even when I was web designing, because obviously you tried your best all those sleepless nights that you put on a project, and then suddenly you will realize, okay, someone is better, or this project is, another project is better than mine, even if I place the effort. You need to put yourself in a position that you would say, okay, I am good, but there are people who are better. There is always a bigger fish out there. Put yourself in that position. Put yourself in the position of acceptance that there are more younger, better, stronger, and more creative people out there in comparison to you. But obviously, there are more people who are lesser than you, mediocre people than you. Put yourself in the situation that we are all in that um, equality in diversity mode. That those people who are better than you know there are things that you know that they don't know, and there are things that they know that you don't know. You know what I mean? I hope I'm making sense. Um, just put yourself in a situation that is more of an acceptance in situations, and try to avoid occasions of frustration, like this occasions of sin, occasion of frustration, like occasions of sin. I remember having that in my subject in religion, but this time is the occasion of frustration. Locations of frustration, meaning to say, don't don't compare yourself on the timeline that you see on your Facebook, on your application, on Instagram, on FB, on whatever sites there is that showcases different work. You need to push yourself, or you need to push yourself to be more, better than what you were yesterday, instead of competing to someone um, looking at what looking at others work. That is someone else's job to do for you, because you what your job is being a photographer, so that you won't struggle emotionally or mentally. Try to avoid or try to remove distractions that you have that will hinder your progression being an artist, that hinders your progression to finishing a job. You know what I mean? Or try to reward yourself whenever there is a milestone that you may have. Like, for example, yesterday, I finished a really big chunk of this project that I am working, that I am working for 9 years already. Every year, I receive this project and I work on it. Until now, I haven't created a solid concrete system that will make our lives easier than what we have. um I try to reward myself every time I surpass that level, and because there are different levels of uh process on this kind of project. You need to sort out the images first. You need to choose the images first. You need to check who paid. You need to give it to the printer. These levels that I am in, like a video game. Whenever I finish one point, I try to have a break, make myself coffee, or even go live to speak with you guys. Being live speaking with you guys, I consider this as a reward that I can try to like talk to you guys. So in my head, I don't the progression in my head keeps me grounded, meaning to say that if I am practicing reward system, then I kind of like lift up the burden that I have in a job, because I am treating myself not like a big treat, but just small treats that keep myself that gives myself a break, so that I can continue my work in a latter time, because I am trying to like get that breather or fresh air, or nice coffee, or a walk in the park, something like that, so that I'll be able to go back to that assignment that I have more stronger and more fresh in a way. That's what I think of a struggle that a photographer face mentally and emotionally somehow. Try not to compare yourself to others. Try to transform your emotion to be more inspiring rather than frustrating. Try to avoid occasions of frustrations, meaning to say, don't dwell on places where you tend to be more depressed or more miserable somehow. Like, this location is a negative location, or occasion, try to avoid people that makes you feel lower. Look for people who talks not about gossips, but about ideas. Don't try to, avoid people talking about people. Avoid negative conversations. Try to always place yourself. Where's the mug of coffee? Actually, it's not a mug, but a tumbler. This is the suction cup, man. Even if I push it, it doesn't it doesn't fall over. It's the magic cup. I had the best coffee. I bought myself a what do you call this? The espresso maker that you can boil on the top of a stove, and the milk boiler, so that you can have um, hot milk, warm milk on your coffee. And Ate Daisy, Mommy Daisy, send me local beans from Philippines, and I can't wait to grind them because I also found my coffee grinder, so I can buy my beans, so I can get my coffee freshly grounded. Because what I do is I buy 200 milligrams of grounded coffee, the organic ones in Carrefour, and then I let them grind it. But then after a week, after 2 3 days, having it on the container, that froth disappears. There's this crema on the top of the coffee that I always look for because it only means on and it shows that your coffee is freshly grounded and freshly made coffee. This is the coffee that I always look for. The coffee that takes time. It's not an instant coffee. It's not 3 in 1. Because for me, having 3 in 1 is a sin. Yes, recipe coffee recipe from photographer to photographers. Yes, maybe I would do that. Because yeah, it is basically what do you call this, organic coffee. Then I will practice the grounding because I just found the grinder and just do it an espresso type, on top stove top. I will teach you soon. Anyway, so those are the three struggles of being a photographer. First is the physical, which is equipment wise. Don't worry about equipment, but if you're doing a professional service, try to be more professional. Try about ways of getting that equipment on the job that you are working on so that you can perform well, but be practical. Number 2, finances. Don't let finances stop you from being a great photographer. Look for ways of having your photograph storytell instead of being the technical person behind, because no one would know if you shot that camera, if you shot that image on a 5D, on a 70D, or whatever lower version it is, in comparison to a Hasselblad, or in comparison to a 5D Mark or a 1DX. No one would know the difference because the important thing is the content and the story on that photograph. That element that agitates the viewer is more important than the technicality of the image. That's number 2. Number 3, try to avoid the location of being frustrated and being miserable. Try to only dwell on places or conversations or even people who discuss ideas instead of gossips and other people negativity, you know, other people's negativity, or stop comparing yourself to others. Try to compete with yourself from yesterday. Try not to compare yourself to others, and try not to compete to other with other photographers about what kind of life they have on social media, because I know having it on social media is very shallow. It's very shallow. It's not the reality. But anyway, guys, thank you very much for your time. I hope that I have given a nice, a good, what you call this, content for you guys. The three struggles of being a photographer, which I have, I still come across on it. But since I've learned my lesson in all these 15 years, on all these years of practicing, I can at least lift myself up a little bit, that I can go through past those things. But even if we know things, even if we know the right things to do, there are still temptations that we that we can't avoid. That's why, but it is still key to know these things, or to have a mentor who can guide you guys in this type of, you know, situation, and this type of career, being a photographer, being an artist, you know. But thank you very much. So again, I hope you enjoyed your first day of 2019, and I will see you more maybe tomorrow if you're up for it. I have I'm targeting 100 vlogs for you guys. I will try to do daily lives, or I will try to do, you know, MWF for you guys, and see what happens. And I am very excited. We are into discussion of something that we photographers need in our work. So I will update you guys when we get development on that. So good night. Thank you very much and have a great week. Cheers.